Marriage counselors of Reddit, what's the stupidest reason a couple has made an appointment? Not a counselor, but me and my ex had the biggest fight, known later as the spoon incident. We were both working over 60 hours a week and we are stressed. Nonetheless, we had one night off together, so I made sure that I had cleaned the house and everything before she came home. She came back while I was unpacking the dishwasher and put the last cutlery in the drawers. When I finally put a spoon in the drawer, she said that's not where it's supposed to go. I asked her whether this is the way you want to treat me after I've cleaned the house and stuff. Never been so pissed at a GF, while it was actually fairly meaningless. I had this couple in my office that was struggling with the fact that their dog would constantly piss in the bed. The husband was ready to boot the dog out, but the wife absolutely would not let that happen. They got the dog from a pretty reputable breeder, so the option of returning the dog was also there if they needed it. The husband doubted that, though. He said the breeder was some sort of creep that tries to hit on women when they go to buy dogs from him. The wife denied this, but the husband continued. The breeder tried to set up a date with the wife when she got the dog. He asked her if she wanted to go to this well-known Mexican restaurant in the town. The owner of the restaurant was kind of a prick, though. He would always skimp out on the chips and salsa and would charge you if you asked for another basket. He also berated the bussers and waitresses in front of customers. Freak that guy. My ex-wife suggested we go to marriage counseling because she felt we needed to work on communication. I was slightly confused since we never really fought about anything and I didn't know that much was amiss. So I went with her and we had several sessions and it basically turned into just parenting classes since we didn't seem to have any issues to work on. Then one day she tells me she's bi and is going to go sleep with a married couple she's been friends with for a week because that's the only thing that's going to make her happy. Would have been nice to know in marriage counseling that was the real issue she was wanting to work on, since I had no idea she was struggling with her sexuality. Guess there really was a communication issue. I remember having this one couple, mid-30s, who just couldn't see any possible chance for reconciliation. She was mad at him because his bowel movements smelled bad and they only had one bathroom. The kicker is that he always would spray air freshener, yet she said it wasn't enough. She felt like if she needed to use the restroom, she shouldn't ever have to smell him, albeit mixed with air freshener smell. So she had finally had enough and she wanted out. He begged and pleaded with her not to. He even tried changing his diet. Nothing. They came to me for help and I'll never in my life forget that first meeting. He sat down with weathered, puffy eyes. He had been crying quite a bit, looked me straight in my eyes and said, "Doc, you should have used a serious tag." I was a life coach for a bit before I realized it was more administrative work than I wanted to do. I wanted to help people, not fight in organizational political fights. During my brief time, one of my clients was really struggling with the color of dog that her husband got for her. She wanted a specific breed of dog since she was a kid and her husband did a bunch of research and got her one from a good line of the breed, but its coat was darker than the dog she imagined and she was really struggling with it. We had a few sessions about expectations clouding your happiness and it turns out the dog was the most explicit example of much bigger issue she had in her life. But I had to seriously put my WTF on hold when she told me about the shade of her dog being a problem. Went to a counselor BC. My mother blew up over the bridal shower. There were 5 bridesmaids, her sister, maid of honor, her cousin, my 2 sisters, and her sister-in-law. Maid of honor lived in different states and no one was planning anything for the shower. Sister-in-law stepped up and did it all, and my mother lost her ass when they asked my sisters to help split the cost, but had no say in shower. Became the reason my now ex-wife hated my mom and family pretty much. Went to counseling and then became, if we have kids, your family will have nothing to do with them. My ex eventually got knocked up by some random and that was the final straw. So many red flags that I just didn't realize. I had a woman come in for couples counseling. Over the phone she reported that her boyfriend, with the same last name, very confusing, was distant and was refusing to listening. When the session started it was just her that showed up. She went on and on about how absent he was and how he refused to see the progress she had been making in her life. It turns out the boyfriend was an ex who had a restraining order against her and lived halfway across the country from her. She was delusional and was receiving treatment for her mental health issues. She just could not get her thinking away from him and legally changed her last name to his because it would mean they would be together. She figured couples counseling was the way to work out their relationship issues. Nothing is really stupid in making the decision to come in for a couples session. But the most startling session I've had was when the couple had barely sat down and one of them informed the other that the relationship was over, turned to me and said, "Thank you for supporting, partner, through this," and left the office. My specialty is children and families, but during the pandemic I was assigned whatever came in because it has been super busy. One lady called and spoke with me first about how her husband was horrible at communication and never listened to her. She asked for a couples session. As soon as she ambushed her husband with a "There is a therapist on the line that wants to speak with you," her husband screamed, "You called a therapist because I don't want to paint the house purple." She wanted me to convince him to paint the house purple, and like any normal human who sees colors, he refused to listen to her. I'm a counselor with teenagers and kids. A school staff member dragged these two teens into my office one day, a boy and a girl. Both were clearly upset, but definitely didn't want to talk about it with me. You could have cut the tension with a knife as they sat frozen in their chairs staring at the floor. I saw them and thought, "Oh freak, she's pregnant." I'm trying not to panic at how to handle the situation as I finally get them talking, and it turns out they were just fighting because he sent a text to some girl. A text. At least she wasn't pregnant. My anger management group facilitator told us a funny story about a couple that came in for counseling. The husband wanted to write a book. The wife said she would work and do everything around the house for a year while he worked on his book. So he quit work and wrote his book while she did everything. The book got published and was a hit. The publisher asked him to do a book signing tour. The wife was furious. She had supported him writing the book and she was done. They came to the appointment and explained the situation. The therapist asked the wife, "So what would it take for you to be okay with the book tour?" She said, "A trip to Hawaii with my sister." The husband was like, "Really? Done." The appointment was over in 5 minutes. I'm not a marriage counselor, but I'm in school to be a mental health counselor at the moment. My professor has worked in the field for over 30 years, and we asked him this question at one point. He answered something like this: "There is no stupid reason to seek out counseling. What may seem trivial to one person can completely consume another person. What may seem insignificant to you might just be the last straw for a client. It's our job to figure out why that stupid reason caused them to land in your care. Sometimes it's a lot of minor things that build up because they don't have any good coping mechanisms. Sometimes it's a major problem that they don't want to talk about, so they start small. Sometimes it's something they don't even realize is a problem, but is causing them distress regardless. There's a lot of reasons why clients might present you with something that seems completely insignificant, but the fact is, they are in front of you, paying you money, so that you can help them improve their mental health 99% of the time. That means that they believe getting help is worth their time and money." He then proceeded to tell us a story about a woman who believed that Ashton Kutcher was her baby's daddy, and she wanted a psychiatric professional to verify her mental health so she could file for child support and reconnect with him. As far as he could tell, she had never met Ashton Kutcher or even seen him in person. So like, sometimes people are crazy, but not usually. Stupid selfish answer coming from a child who grew up with this. My mother scheduled an intervention. She and my sister and I met with a counselor and talked about all the things my dad did wrong. I would comment things that basically said I don't think that's the problem and would be constantly shut down. We had the intervention and my dad got sober for a while. Turns out, my mother is just an absolutely miserable child of a woman. When I lived with her, I saw glimpses of it. She broke a plate once, and when I asked why, she said, "Because I felt like it." Then when I started crying and picking up the pieces, she just drunkenly stumbled past me and went to bed. I think I was 12. She was 36 when I was born. When we went to pick my dad up from rehab, there was a group thing where they went around the room. Everyone would say something about their partner, that they were there to pick up, that they loved. My mother said she couldn't think of anything. My mother said she couldn't think of anything. My dad told me later in life that that was the moment he knew it was over. Turns out, they only got married in the first place because my mother's parents didn't want them living together before marriage. Scotch-Irish Catholics. Go figure. After years of dealing with a childish, emotionally stunted, generally shitty partner, he stopped trying. Then she played the victim, same as her mother, and which she continues to do to this day. She lies about being happy while being heavily medicated. I reach out to her to meet my girlfriend of, at the time, 7 years, now 8, bless her, and she somehow manages to make our schedule around the wedding. We're therefore just making things difficult for her and cancels, telling me more or less, if you can't meet my exact criteria, freak you, I'm not even going to try. It's always something. I basically told her that's on her, and if you want to be a part of my life you need to make an effort. I went no contact a few months back, and it's better for my mental health.